Jake Carter stood under the bright blue sky of Valari Prime, looking up at the towering alien city around him. The buildings shimmered like glass trees, growing from the ground with glowing vines twisting around them. The planet was beautiful. The people were different. Jake was a human mechanic, assigned to work on diplomatic starships. Earth had just joined the United Galactic Alliance, and humans were still new to many planets. Valari Prime was one of those new places. Jake wiped his hands on a cloth and walked into the repair bay. Inside stood a silver cruiser shaped like a bird, its wings folded. It was damaged, the engine sparking softly. He had a job to do. A voice behind him made him pause. "You are the mechanic?" Jake turned and saw her. She stood tall, with long silver, hair that flowed like silk. Her skin had a soft purple tone, and her glowing teal eyes watched him carefully. She wore a flowing blue robe and her face looked calm, but distant. "Yeah," Jake said with a smile. "Jake Carter, human mechanic. You must be the ship's owner?" "I am Sarian Velarai, daughter of the High Envoy," she said quietly. "This is my personal cruiser. It malfunctioned during the storm." Jake nodded and walked toward the ship. "No problem. I'll fix it." Sarian tilted her head. "Humans are quick to speak." Jake laughed. "Maybe, but we get the job done." She didn't smile. Instead, she folded her arms and watched him work. Hours passed. Jake lay on his back under the ship, tools clicking and sparks flying. He hummed a tune from Earth as he worked. He didn't mind the silence. He knew some aliens didn't talk much, but he could feel her eyes watching him the whole time. Finally, he rolled out from under the ship, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Main engine's stable now. You'll get better lift speed and smoother control," he said. Sarian nodded. "You repaired it, faster than expected." Jake grinned. "I told you, humans work fast." She looked away, but for a brief moment, Jake thought he saw something strange on her face. A soft glow touched her cheeks. It looked like a blush? No, he thought. Maybe it was just the lights. The next day, Sarian came back. Jake was working on another ship when he heard the soft sound of her boots. She stood near the door, pretending to look at her ship again. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Need something?" Sarian looked at her ship, then back at him. "I thought I heard a strange sound in the engine last night." Jake walked over and scanned the ship. "No errors. Everything's clean." She paused. "Maybe I imagined it." Jake smiled again. "Or maybe you just wanted to visit your favorite mechanic." For a second, her eyes widened. Then her cheeks glowed again, brighter this time. She turned quickly. "I must go." And she walked away fast, her hair swaying behind her. For the next 5 days, it became a pattern. Sarian would find small excuses to come by, checking the ship, asking about the controls, even pretending the light was too dim. Jake knew she didn't need help, but he didn't say anything. He liked her visits. She never stayed long. She rarely said much, but every time he smiled at her, she would blush just a little and look away. Jake didn't push. He knew alien. Customs were different. But he also knew something was growing between them. A feeling. A connection. One evening, he saw her outside the bay near the forest path. She stood alone, looking at the glowing plants that lit up the night. Jake walked slowly toward her. "Nice view," he said softly. She didn't turn. "This was my favorite place as a child. The forest glows only when the sky is clear." Jake stood beside her. The leaves shimmered with soft colors, blue, green, and purple. "I didn't know Valari Prime could be this peaceful," he said. Sarian glanced at him. "Most humans never stay long enough to notice." Jake looked at her. "Maybe I'll stay longer." This time, her cheeks turned bright. She took a small step back. "You speak too freely," she whispered. Jake chuckled. "And you blush too, Easily, she gasped, covering her face for a moment. You saw that? Every time, Jake said gently. Sarian looked away. It is not common for us. Blushing is rare. I like it, Jake said honestly. It's honest. For a moment, they stood in silence, the lights of the forest dancing around them. Then, suddenly, she stepped back. I must go. And, just like before, she ran off, leaving Jake standing there, confused but smiling. Back in his room that night, Jake stared at the ceiling. He had fixed ships for generals and smugglers. He had worked on planets with toxic air and frozen winds, but nothing had ever felt like this. This girl, this alien girl with quiet eyes and soft blushing cheeks, was different. He didn't know where it would lead, maybe nowhere. But for the first time since leaving Earth, Jake felt something more than duty. He felt hope. Sarian sat in her quiet room, the silver moonlight from Valari Prime shining through the window. Her long fingers brushed the surface of her sketch tablet. On it, the faint image of a human face began to appear. Jake Carter. His smile, his warm eyes, the way he looked at her when she blushed. She had drawn it all without meaning to. She stared at the picture, her heart beating faster. What is this feeling? She whispered to herself. Valerians were not known for quick emotions. Their people believed in slow bonding, quiet feelings, and rules. But Jake made her feel something new, and that scared her. The next day, she returned to the shipyard. Her excuse, this time, was a strange humming noise from the flight panel. Jake saw her from across the room and waved. Hey there, Princess Sparkplug, he joked. She blinked. Princess what? Jake chuckled. You keep showing up with small problems. It's like your ship is making excuses for you. Sarian tried to hide her smile, but her cheeks glowed again, bright pink against her soft purple skin. I'm simply making sure the repairs are complete, she said, trying to sound serious. Jake leaned against the ship. Well, you can. Always double-check my work. Or maybe you just like seeing me? Sarian looked away. Humans speak too boldly. Jake stepped closer, but kept a respectful distance. Maybe. But I mean it. Their eyes met. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The ships, the tools, the noise. Then she stepped back quickly. I must go. She turned and walked, away. But this time, she didn't run. Her steps were slower, and she looked back once. Just once. For the rest of the week, the visits continued. One day, she brought him a small fruit from the Velerin garden. It was shaped like a star and glowed. Softly, Jake raised an eyebrow. A gift? That's new? Sarian looked down. It's a sign of appreciation. Velerins give this when they are grateful. Jake took it gently. Thank you. I'll treasure it. She nodded, but said nothing more. Her cheeks were glowing again. Another day, they sat together while Jake worked on a cooling unit. Sarian said nothing, just watched him fix parts and hum earth tunes. After an hour, she finally asked, Why do you sing when you work? Jake smiled. It helps me think. Music makes everything easier. I don't know music, she said softly. Jake looked at her. I can teach you. She didn't answer, but a small smile touched her lips. News of her visits began to spread. Some Velerines in the diplomatic tower started whispering. Is the envoy's daughter spending too much time with that human? She's showing signs. Blushing. That's not normal. Even her brother Velar Hen noticed the change. One evening, he walked into her room without knocking. You've been visiting that human again, he said with a frown. Sarien stood still. He's kind. He listens. He makes me feel seen. Velarin narrowed his glowing eyes. Humans are dangerous. Their hearts burn too fast. They don't understand balance. Sarian looked away. Then maybe I want something different, from balance. Her brother said nothing for a while. Then he warned, our family is respected. If you shame us, I'm not shaming anyone, Sarian said sharply. I'm just talking to someone who treats me like a person, not a tool for politics. Valoran left without another word. Sarian sat on her bed, her heart pounding. She didn't want to fight her family, but she couldn't stay away from Jake either. That night, Jake was walking back to his quarters when he saw a glowing figure waiting by the courtyard. It was Sarian. He paused. You okay? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, Come, I want to show you something. She led him to a small path behind the tower. They walked through the glowing plants until they reached a quiet pond. The water shimmered under the stars. Sarian knelt beside the water. When I was young, I came here to think. It's a sacred place. Jake sat beside her. It's beautiful, like everything here. She looked at him. Her voice was soft. Why are you so kind to me? Jake blinked. What do you mean? I've heard what some humans say about aliens. They mock us, fear us, or treat us like puzzles. But you just talk to me. You smile, you care. Jake looked into her eyes. Because you're not just an alien. You're Sarian, and I like you. A lot. Her cheeks glowed like fire. Jake leaned in just a little, testing the space between them. Sarian's breath caught. For a moment, it felt like she would close the gap. But then, footsteps. A Valoran guard appeared, shocked. Lady Sarian, she stood up quickly. I was just... Jake stood too. It's okay, I'll go. He nodded to her, then turned and walked away, his heart heavy. Sarian watched him disappear into the trees. Back in her room, she opened her sketch tablet again. She drew Jake's face once more, but this time, she added something else. A small heart glowing behind him. She touched the screen gently. I can't stop, she whispered. Even if I'm not supposed to. I don't want to. At the same moment, Jake sat in his room, holding the glowing star fruit she gave him. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a crush. It was something deeper, something worth fighting for. The next morning, Jake walked into the workshop early. The usual hum of tools and quiet air welcomed him. But something felt different. Sarian didn't come. For 5 days straight, she had visited him, even with weak excuses. She always came, with a soft voice, glowing cheeks, and that small, nervous smile. But today, she was gone. Jake sighed and picked up his tools. He didn't want to guess. Maybe she was just busy, but deep inside, he felt something was wrong. Sarian, meanwhile, sat quietly in the Velori family chamber. Her father, High Envoy Tolar, and her brother Valoran stood before her. Tolar's face was stern. His voice was heavy. You are the daughter of this family. The galaxy watches us. Why are you behaving like a careless child? Sarian didn't lift her head. I'm not being careless. Valoran crossed his arms. You've been spending time with that human. People talk. Guards whisper, you embarrassed us. I didn't do anything wrong, Sarian replied softly. Tolar raised his voice. He's a human, Sarian. They are not like us. They feel too quickly. They rush into emotions. Their ways are wild, unbalanced. Sarian's eyes lifted, firm and calm. And yet he's the first one who ever listened to me, who saw me as more than an ambassador's daughter. Tolar frowned. This is not about feelings. It's about tradition, unity, respect. Valoran females do not form attachments with off-worlders. It's never happened. Maybe it should, she whispered. Silence filled the room. Finally, Tolar spoke. You are forbidden from seeing him again. Sarian's heart cracked inside her chest, but she stood up slowly and bowed her head. As you wish. But deep inside, she knew She could not stop her heart. Back in the shipyard, Jake kept checking the cruiser he had already fixed. He wasn't really looking for errors. He was just hoping she would show up. But she didn't. Not the first day, not the second. On the third day, Jake finally asked one of the guards, "Have you seen Sarien Velarai?" The guard hesitated, then answered, "She is not to meet with outsiders. Orders from her family." Jake's chest tightened. He had felt it coming, but hearing it out loud still hurt. She was being kept away. That night, he walked alone through the glowing forest path. He ended up at the small pond Sarien had shown him. The water shimmered under the moons. He sat by the water's edge, pulling out the star fruit she had given him. It still glowed softly, just like her. Jake whispered to the stillness, "I don't know your rules, but I know she smiled when she was with me." He stayed there until the stars shifted across the sky. Far above, in her private room, Sarien sat with her sketch tablet open. She hadn't drawn anything for days. But now her fingers moved slowly, carefully. She drew the pond. She drew Jake sitting by it. His back was turned, head down, shoulders quiet. Her tears fell silently onto the screen. She missed him, more than she expected. And yet, she didn't know what to do. The next morning, Jake decided he couldn't just wait anymore. He walked up to the Velarin Tower gates. The guards crossed their staffs. "You are not permitted entry." "I just want to talk to Sarien," Jake said calmly. "No visitors. Orders from the High Envoy." Jake stepped back. He didn't want to start trouble, but he also didn't want to give up. So he walked to the Velarin Cultural Hall, where alien scholars and historians shared knowledge. Maybe he could learn something. Maybe there was a way around the barrier. Inside, a kind old Velarin named Reshatan welcomed him. "A human curious about our culture? That is rare." Jake nodded. "I want to understand the Velarins better, especially the meaning of blushing." Reshatan raised a brow. "Blushing, that is no small thing." "Please," Jake said, "teach me." Reshatan spoke slowly, like a patient teacher. "Velarin, blushing is not a simple reaction. It is a soul spark, a sign that our hearts are opening. It only happens when one truly connects with another. Most Velarins never blush more than once in their lives." Jake felt his heart race. "She's blushed almost every day." Reshatan's eyes widened. "Then she has chosen you. But her family forbids us from seeing each other." Reshatan leaned closer. "Velarin society is strict, but the old ways are changing. If she is truly bonded with you, that bond cannot be broken by rules, only by fear." Jake whispered, "I'm not afraid." Back in the Velarai Tower, Sarien sat at her window, watching the sky. Suddenly, her communicator buzzed. A private message. It was from Reshatan. Only 4 words appeared. "He knows. He waits." Her heart skipped. Jake hadn't given up. Sarien stood up. Her hands trembled. She walked to her door and locked it. Later that night, Velarin entered. Her room without knocking again, but this time the door didn't open. He frowned. "Sarien?" No answer. He tried again. Still locked. Inside, Sarien sat by her table, writing a letter on glowing parchment. A quiet rebellion bloomed in her heart. As the day ended, Jake sat in his room, staring out the window. He had tried everything. Still no word from her. But just as he turned to leave his chair, a small envelope slid under his door. He picked it up, heart pounding. Inside was a single glowing sketch, him sitting at the pond, and one line written beneath, "I will come. Wait for me." Jake held the paper close to his chest. He didn't know how, he didn't know when, but he knew she was coming. And that was enough. The day was quiet, but Jake's heart was not. He sat in his small room at the diplomatic guest quarters on Valari Prime, staring at the glowing sketch Sarian had slipped under his door. The picture of him at the pond, drawn with gentle strokes, showed more than just his face. It showed hope. It showed promise. It showed a connection no one could break. He didn't know when she would come, but he knew she would. Meanwhile, behind the thick walls of the Velari family chamber, Sarian. Paste! She looked at the locked door that separated her from the world, and from Jake. For the first time in her life, she had taken a stand. Her fingers traced the glowing runes on the door's lock. She had programmed it herself to keep her family out. No one could enter without her permission. She had no idea what would happen next, but she knew she could no longer hide. Back at the workshop, Jake had a simple plan. He would wait. He would prepare. He would make sure everything was ready to take her away. Any time she was ready. He spent the day checking his small repair ship, polishing the control panels, refilling supplies, and programming the star maps. He worked quietly but with steady hands. The ship was ready. Late that evening, a quiet knock startled Jake. He opened the door slowly, heart pounding. There stood Sarian. Her cheeks glowed softly, but her eyes shone brighter. Without a word, she stepped inside, and the door clicked, shut behind her. Jake felt the lock engage. She had locked the door. They stood facing each other in the small room. Neither spoke for a moment. The air was thick with things unspoken. Then, softly, Sarian said, "I am tired of waiting. I am tired of hiding." Jake nodded. "I am here, whenever you need me." Her eyes searched his face. "Do you know what this means? If my family finds out, I could be exiled?" "Worse." Jake took her hands gently. "Then we face it together." Her breath caught. Sarian stepped closer, heart pounding. She looked into his eyes and whispered, "On Valari Prime, there is a special way to show trust." She reached up and pressed her forehead lightly against his. Jake blinked, surprised, but did the same. In Velarin culture, this simple act was a sign of deep connection, a bond of trust and respect that few shared. His heart raced. This was more than friendship. This was something rare and powerful. Hours passed as they talked quietly about their hopes and fears. Sarian told Jake about her family's strict rules. Jake shared stories from Earth, of places where people chose love over rules. For the first time, they felt free. They laughed softly, shared small smiles, and in the quiet night, something new was born. Suddenly, a loud banging on the door shattered the moment. "Sarian! Open this door immediately!" Valarin's voice thundered outside. Sarian's eyes widened. She looked at Jake, then moved to unlock the door, but Jake shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "Let them wait." Valarin shouted again. "You will regret this." But the door remained locked. After a tense silence, the banging stopped. Sarian sank onto a chair, exhausted. Jake sat beside her. "Your family is powerful," Jake said softly, "but they don't control your heart." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I don't know what will happen next," she said, "but with you, I feel stronger." Jake smiled. "We'll face it all together." The next morning, the news spread quickly. The envoy's daughter had locked herself away with the human mechanic. Velarin officials gathered at the tower, whispering and worried. High Envoy Toller sent a message. "This defies tradition and threatens our honor." But Sarian stood firm. She sent a message back. "I choose my own path, no one else." The Galactic Council soon intervened. Representatives from many worlds met to discuss the growing tension. They spoke of peace, trust, and the power of bonds that cross stars. In a rare decision, they allowed Sarian to travel with Jake, breaking centuries of Velaran custom. The galaxy watched in surprise. That night, Jake helped Sarian pack her things. She looked around her room one last time. "This place was my home," she said softly. "But I want to see the stars with you." Jake smiled. "Then let's go." As they boarded the repair ship, Sarian reached for Jake's hand. Their fingers intertwined, the engines hummed to life, and with a soft glow from the stars outside, they lifted off together. Outside, the glowing forests of Valari Prime faded. Behind them, inside, two hearts beat as one, a human and an alien, two worlds joined by trust, courage, and a quiet love that had bloomed behind locked doors. The stars stretched out before them like diamonds scattered across black velvet as Jake's small repair ship left the atmosphere of Valari Prime. Inside, the cabin was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines and the steady beating of two hearts, Jake's and Sarian's. They sat side by side, their fingers still linked, a bond forged through weeks of stolen moments, blushes, and whispered hopes. Sarian looked out the window, her glowing eyes reflecting the endless stars. "This is different," she said softly. Jake smiled. "Different can be good." For the first time in her life, Sarian felt free from the strict rules and cold judgments of her home. The vastness of space was both frightening and beautiful, but beside Jake, she felt brave. "Where will we go?" she asked. Jake thought for a moment. "Anywhere. Everywhere. Wherever we find peace." She turned to him. "I never thought I could choose my own path." "You're choosing it now," Jake said. "With me." Her cheeks flushed once again, but this time she smiled brightly. Days passed as they traveled between stars. Jake showed her how to pilot the ship. Sarian shared stories of Velaran history and culture. Their worlds blended like colors mixing in light. One evening, they settled in the observation deck. The galaxy spun in quiet beauty around them. Jake looked at Sarian. "I have a question." She raised an eyebrow. "Go on." He hesitated. "Will you be my partner? Not just in travel, but in life?" Her heart skipped. She nodded slowly. "Yes, I want that." Jake grinned. "Then it's official." They laughed, and for a moment the weight of their past seemed to disappear. But space was not always peaceful. News from Valari Prime reached them through the ship's communication system. The Velaran Council was divided. Some accepted Sarian's choice. Others called it a betrayal. Threats came to Jake's home base on Valari Prime. Some whispered of exile. Others of political moves to remove Jake from the alliance. One night, as Jake worked on the ship's engines, Sarian placed a calming hand on his shoulder. "We must be careful," she said. "But I will stand with you." Jake looked up, his eyes warm. "I'm glad you're here." She smiled softly. "So am I." Together they made a plan to face the challenges ahead. Months passed. Slowly, things began to change. Sarian's courage inspired others. Some Velarins started to question old rules, they asked. Could love truly cross worlds? Could humans and Velarins live side by side? At the Galactic Council, leaders from many worlds met again. This time, the focus was on unity. They celebrated the bond between Jake and Sarian as a new symbol of hope. For the first time, the Council agreed on a joint mission to explore the galaxy together, humans and Velarins as equals. Jake and Sarian prepared for this mission. They stood together on the deck of a new, larger ship, the symbol of a new era. Sarian looked at Jake, her cheeks glowing as always. "Ready?" she asked. Jake smiled. "Always." They stepped into the ship, ready to explore the stars hand in hand. As the ship launched, the galaxy watched. Two hearts from two worlds, united. Two souls daring to love, to hope. to change the future. Together they moved forward, into the unknown, into the light.